Welcome to the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about some of the most common mistakes we see made by newer operators. And so if you're a first or second time buyer buying a facility, we're going to talk about some common pitfalls that we see people fall into there and how you can avoid them as a newer operator. We're also going to talk about the realities of storage management and how having the right team in place can make or break your investment. We're going to break all that down and more today. This podcast episode is brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a self-storage management software that offers all of the features and functionality you need to run your business, all of the automation to eliminate your workload, and at the same time, can be used at your facility at no cost. With their compliant differential pricing, you can pass the fees for card acceptance onto your tenants, and there's no cost for the software to your business. So imagine being able to increase your revenue by 3 to 4%. Without increasing your move-outs. This can be implemented overnight, and their team is very good at setting up and implementing this for facilities across America. It's compliant in all 50 states, and if you want to see how this works, check out ccstorage.com to book a demo. Self-storage owners, if you're looking to maximize revenue and streamline operations, White Label Storage has you covered. Their management services combine the latest self-storage technology with data-driven marketing to boost facility performance. From high-converting websites to SEO-driven lead generation to pay-per-click advertising, they know how to fill units fast. White Label Storage offers complete facility management as well as a la carte services like marketing, call center services, and revenue management. With White Label Storage, you can do less and earn more. Visit whitelabelstorage.com to schedule your demo today. Excited for today's episode. I am joined by Peter Smyth and Alex Hartman of White Label Storage. And Peter, and me and you connected about a year ago, had you on the podcast once last year, and very excited to have you back on the show and to discuss our topic for today about some of the things that newer buyers and some common mistakes that we see that newer buyers, new facility operators make. Alex, first time I can have you on the show. And so if you don't mind, could you give us a little bit of your background on how you got into self-storage, where you're at with White Label Storage today, and some of the stuff you guys are working on?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone who's listening or watching. I'm Alex. This is my co-founder, Pete. So we got into storage about 7 years ago now. Pete and I were business school classmates, and we wanted to sort of do our own thing rather than getting a traditional job. So we started working on a concept called Local Locker, where we're finding unused space in commercial buildings in the densest cities in the country, throwing up 60 to 70 storage units and managing and marketing them remotely. So we scaled that business up to 60 locations. We work with the landlords, split revenue. So for them, we're monetizing tough to rent space. But somewhere along the way, we got halfway decent at managing facilities, sort of small facilities remotely, and figure out how to market them with a digital marketing strategy, because these Local Locker locations were kind of hidden in buildings. So we launched a product called White Label Storage. We're actually spending exclusively all our time on that, which is just a third-party management product where we started to focus on remote assets, but now we manage assets of all type. And we really took what we learned and knew there and kind of took our show on the road to help kind of typically first-time buyers, mom and pop type owners to get more out of their facility.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'd seen on as far as the last I'd looked, are you guys around like 130 facilities that you're managing now through White Label?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. We're onboarding anywhere from 15 to 25 a month right now. And we're taking on more than just the mom and pops as well. We're taking on some fully staffed, climate controlled facilities with institutional owners. We've got that product dialed now as well. So we're open for business.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always exciting to see companies growing and doing well. And storage it's still a lot of fun. There's still a lot of room for growth. But yeah, it's awesome to see companies like you guys and what you're doing with storage right now. So awesome. Well, today I kind of wanted to talk to you guys specifically about newer operators and some of the challenges that they face, storage since 2019, 2020 with the COVID boom that that hit, there's a ton of interest around newer people getting into storage, buying these buildings that are now being sold because they were built thinking there was going to be more value there than there was. And the market's just changing pretty quickly. What are some of the things that you guys are seeing with newer operators that are purchasing facilities and some mistakes that they're making as they're maybe making their first purchase?
Yeah. I think for that, we'll just start with how at least some prospective owners are thinking prior to purchasing during their first purchase, when they don't have any experience under their belt. Most folks are using brokers, and then they are relying on the broker pro forma. Most, not all, but a lot of assets that are for sale, the broker pro forma is showing some level of ramp up and some level of increasing average rates and to get that up or above market, right? Rolling out tenant or insurance programs like these things are all typically in the broker pro forma. But then you need a real sort of concrete plan for how to do it. If a facility's been stuck at 50% occupancy and it's been around for 10 years, like what are you as an owner going to do to go from 50 to 90? Because you can't just rely on it leasing up unless things are done differently.
For sure.
So a lot of times we'll see people come in and realize that's just a little more difficult than I thought or I budgeted for. And, particularly in today's environment, storage assets are selling at, fairly high prices on sort of any metric, right? So there's not a lot of room for error. You do need to get it. If you bought it at a broker pro forma, you need to get it to that. And that can be really challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never seen an offering memorandum show a facility stuck at 50% occupancy.
Right.
So, it's not to say that they're BS, you just got to understand what's it going to take to get it there. The assumptions, everything that leads up to kind of whatever the stabilized in-place rent is that the investment sales team's trying to, apply a cap rate to, you have to challenge those assumptions, and it's not always the case that they're going to be wrong, but you need to understand how you're going to get there.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of times they'll be way off in terms of marketing spend as you're trying to push that, the occupancy up. That's one of the things, we hear a lot from people they've built facilities, they just have opened in the last year or two. There is a lot of a need there around the marketing side to get these things leased up, because when they started building, it was just like everybody that they looked at was 100% occupied, and they were like, this is going to be a cakewalk. It's just money laying there waiting to be had. So that's changed pretty quickly.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we say too is sometimes there's maybe not realistic expectations on when you can cash flow. You're starting a new business or acquiring a new business, and it's very rare when you're starting a new business for it to cash flow day one.
Right.
It takes time, particularly if there's debt on it, right?
Sure.
Some owners we talk to or work with, they know the facility is struggling, but they didn't either, whether with their own balance sheet or they raised money from LPs, they didn't raise enough money to have any operating losses or to invest in the facility. Maybe it's modernizing it with a new gate, maybe it's spending on marketing. So they're sort of unable to invest, and therefore very unlikely that the improvements that they were counting on are going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And go ahead. Sorry, Peter.
I would just say on top of that, the transition process for us, we have a business within the business, which is we have a transitions team, and that's getting somebody from a signed up deal to us managing their facility. So we are often spearheading the process of that first time buyer becoming an owner, officially becoming an owner.
Okay.
And the expectations are often mismatched on how long things take, and not just because of us as an operator or anybody else as an operator, but if you buy a facility that has high occupancy but also has high delinquency, or has high occupancy but you're moving them online, both of those things are major factors. Starting with, if you have an offline tenant base, those tenants have been trained to be offline. So they come in and they deliver checks, probably not on the first of the month. And if you're going to try to get them online, it's going to take a couple, just imagine any sort of sales campaign where you're going to 100 people and saying, hey, I need to collect payment from you differently now, or any outbound campaign.
Yeah.
Similarly, the quality of the occupancy can be a problem. We have had facilities come to us where the prior manager probably wasn't even doing that bad of a job. Like, and the owner says, hey, the occupancy's taken a dip and I'm not happy with my management. And that, if you actually look at it and you track occupancy and collections have either stayed steady or gone up, but occupancy's gone way down. And it's because the manager's clearing out all the people who are in there, but not actually real. That's not real revenue, real quality paying tenants.
Right.
So legally, it takes, on that front, it could take more than 90 days to get somebody out that's not paying, especially if they've made some partial payments. You can't run the actual the lien process. So it's just the expectations need to be set that there could be some operating losses up front. It doesn't mean you have a failing business. It just means be prepared to budget for it and invest in it.
Yeah.
And the last piece there, really, also the seller, right? When someone's positioning their asset to sell it, they're on their best behavior. They're doing collections. They're really hustling to get an extra booking or two.
Sure.
Now the facility's under contract for who knows, 3 months before you close. During that time, right? The prior owner, realistically, they're going to be a little more lax on their collection processes. How hard they're trying to market it. Are they picking up the phone or not? If her credit card breaks, are they chasing after the person to get a new one? Mm-hmm. So there's often, even outside of the transition itself, there's sometimes a little bit of a gap between when you buy the facility, or what you look at when you buy it and what you inherit when you close it.
Sure.
So to have a little bit more of a buffer there. Don't expect model in a little deterioration.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then coming in, working with somebody that also understands what they're doing and that understands what's coming is huge there. That adds so much more value than you really realize when you just put a price tag on it, like what you guys are bringing to the table to help somebody through that transition. And I would even add in there to say that, I mean, with our software company, we work with so many people and all of them manage their businesses differently. So while it might seem like, oh, it's storage and everybody should operate the same way, everybody has completely different procedures for how they handle almost everything. I mean, it's the Wild West for sure. Like the companies we work with, they just do everything different. And so if you don't understand what you're getting into there, as far as how was the facility managed, how are the tenants going to respond to the changes, there's definitely a lot of unknowns there that you're gonna have to cross. I mean, I even have dealt with facilities where they were like, "Hey, we sold our facility last month, and you need to add the new owner into our account to take over the software." And I'm like, "Your payments have been running all month going into your bank account, and they never even took the step to transition the software to the new owner." So like some of these people have no idea what they're doing. So bringing in some experience is definitely worth its weight in gold there for sure.
Yeah, certainly. Experience can be helpful, but at a minimum, it can be sort of relieve some anxiety, right? That these issues are common. We've been through them too many times to count, and we'll be through them, over and over again. So it's not right. The sky isn't falling in. It's just normal,
for sure.
Normal pain of transitions, and you typically end up in a healthier place after. So.
Yeah. If I can ask you this, whenever you would start working with a facility that didn't bring on you guys to manage their facility right off the bat, they tried to do it on their own first. What are some of the kind of plateaus that you see them hit where they're finally to the point where they're like, oh, I need to bring in some help here. I don't know how to get to that next level.
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing is interacting with tenants, giving out personal information, or even if you don't step one is you've become a customer service business. It is a consumer business, and you are either calling people to collect payment or fielding calls about complaints. And very quickly that can take up a lot of your day and create sort of a disjointed schedule when you're trying to execute against a CapEx plan or, run the rest of your diligence, set up your utility and, pay your taxes. Then on top of that, if we're talking first-time buyers, will use their personal cell phones. And once you give tenants your personal cell phone, that is a compounding effect of you start to communicate regularly with your tenants and develop personal relationships with them. So we see a lot of that where they're like, I need to remove myself from the facility. And again, it can be effective. Like I think when you're taking over a facility where the prior owner ran his or her facility that way, like that can be an effective way to collect rent. But if you're not planning to do that, like you need to retrain your customer base and it's going to take time and there's going to be pain. Like the happiest that a tenant of a storage facility ever is when when they enter the facility. But over the longer term, like you're usually not going to be reaching out to them to lower their rent. You're not doing anything to make the inside of their storage unit a luxury product now, right? Like it's always ever going to be like, here's a new price, a new fee, some sort of change that is going to be maybe some friction point. So that becomes a difficult customer service function.
For sure. Yeah, and one of the ones that I see a lot, and I would just kind of bounce this idea off of you and see what your take is on it, is that like a lot of newer operators or even individual operators that only have one or two facilities, they make a lot of exceptions, right? So like we deal with a lot of people where it's like we struggle to automate their facility with the software because they don't want to generate late fees on the 10th because they have 10 people that they know that they don't want to get that late fee notification and they want to waive those fees. And so then they get stuck in this rut of like manually doing everything so they can keep a couple of people happy. I don't know if you guys see that a lot whenever you're taking over facilities, but it feels like people are scared to put a line in the sand and say, here's how we're going to run our business.
Yeah. I mean, whenever we do a transition, like clockwork, if here's the new lease, we're trying to push everyone to some sort of credit card or ACH, but some sort of automatic payment. There's now going to be some late fees. There's going to be some overlock fees, and always there's an angry cohort of I had this deal with John. Me and John went back 8 years.
Right.
Just drop off some cash when you can. Don't worry about it. Like that was our deal. Like why are you doing this? Like all the time. And yeah, again, like the there's new, you don't want to be, so cold and get a lot of bad reviews, but there's a new owner. They don't have that personal relationship and they're relying on the cash flow because, that owner, John, just probably sold this facility for a killing. And, now the new owner needs to make their money and get their cash flow, right?
And to be fair, we have had our own sort of internal struggles with our clients where they want us to keep those exceptions in place. Like, hey, this guy pays on the 10th of the month. And that's hard for us at scale to have 130 facilities on the platform and to sort of build a process around, making exceptions for tenants when we know that that's not best practice. So there are trade-offs there too. And we try to roll out a playbook where we can, deliver on expectations with our clients, but say like, look, we can do some things your way. We can customize this a bit, but like, this is the best way to run a facility, and like we need to adhere to standards, or we're going to be held to performance that we can't deliver on because we're not doing it the way we want to do it.
For sure, yeah, and yeah, it just increases complexity so much that we same kind of scenarios where auto pays running different days of the month even though they're due on the first, like that kind of stuff. I just don't understand it, but at the same time, they've done it and that's what they're used to, and they're scared to make any changes or upset anybody.
Yeah. And again, a lot of that stems from you make these exceptions if you're the owner picking up the phone and it's Saturday and you're with your husband or wife and you're trying to get off the phone. You're like, all right, whatever, you can pay on the 10th, right? So that's where a lot of this stems from. So sometimes a little bit more of just with storage outside of if managers can run a facility better or not. Just putting a little bit of that barrier and layer of protection between you and potentially irate customer is worth a lot in and of itself.
Absolutely. Where they're calling somebody else instead of you, and somebody else can deal with it on the weekend. I
do want to say though, it doesn't mean that whoever owned the facility before didn't have a system that was working. Mm-hmm. Like if you are okay, we used to answer the phones for Local Locker and we did a bit of that ourselves. We're like, it's this guy again. Like he'll pay, put him on a payment plan. It's the easy, natural thing to do. And if you've kept your business to one facility with like 80 tenants, you can manage that. Right. You can get paid. You can know you're going to get paid by the end of the month. It just doesn't work. The new owner that we're working for, or that's coming in and buying this asset is like probably, even if they have their own system that does have exceptions, those exceptions aren't going to be the same as the prior owner. So it's just good. It's like, this is why process matters.
For sure. So the one thing you had mentioned earlier when you were saying about, a lot of people that bring in a management company, or when you start working with them, they want help. They've given out their phone number. They're trying to get away from the business, that sort of thing. What are some of the steps that you guys take as far as implementation and the flow of taking over that facility? Do you send letters, emails, texts, all of that? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, the most important letter is the transition letter. It's the new management letter that we send out, and that's typically accompanied by a new lease. If we think that the prior lease didn't, in many cases, the delinquency schedule is wrong. Like, we want to check. We have our own leases and our own counsel that make sure that we're adhering to state lien laws, and same thing with fees and practices. Like, just as far as, hey, we're going to it's okay for us to text you. So you need to send out that new letter right away, so that 30 days later, that's how you can operate. Because if you don't get that letter out, then you're just going to be kind of adhering to the terms of the old lease. So that's number one. Then we have sort of an outbound text, email, and call campaign for folks that are either delinquent or whose credit cards we don't have on file. So that's step two. And then communicating via sign, like actually walking the site, putting signage up that educates the customer that there is new management, maybe a new phone number, and a new way to communicate. You just got to roll all those things out, because the sooner you get on top of that, the sooner you can make sure you prevent people from getting delinquent. I mean,
Sure.
It can be hard. Like, a lot of tenants at storage facilities, if they miss 1 month, it will be very hard for them to ever catch up. So you want to get out in front of that before that becomes a problem. So that's the first 30 days for us, is just making sure that they know we're there and that we have transferred everybody over into the new portal.
For sure.
Yeah, but if you're a new owner, don't use your personal phone, because tenants are going to save your contact. So even if you make a change down the road, a big chunk of your client base is going to have your phone, and people are creatures of habit. So when they have a question, they're going to call you, even if there's a new number, posted and everything online, and the website's now updated. A certain set of customers are going to have your phone number. They're going to contact you. Like, we worked with one client who literally ported his personal cell phone number to us, so clients would stop calling it. He got a new personal number. Because he's like, I just can't have these calls anymore.
Right.
But that's avoidable if you set it up the right way in the beginning, and it's not. You can just sort of get a Google Voice number or something that it's a couple of bucks.
That's
as a barrier.
Before we move on, that is an important point on the do's and don'ts of first-time ownership. Either take over or forward phone numbers. Same thing with domain and Google business listings. Those things are hard to replace. For phone and listing, getting domain authority is hard. If you are buying a facility that has some sort of domain authority, you're going to keep the branding in place. You want to keep it. If you have to rebrand it, it can be expensive. From a signage standpoint, any sort of SEO authority that you've got, same thing with your Google PIN. You want to be able to take that over. So as early as possible in the diligence process, think of every way that the facility could be either discovered or contacted, and map that into how you're going to operate the facility and get on top of it, because it can be hard to track these things down later. It's hard to, anytime you got to deal with Verizon or Google or any of these faceless massive organizations, it's a process.
And it takes time. It's even when you submit requests, if you don't get the ownership of the Google business listing from the owner, and you have to request it through Google and go through that process. I don't know how fast you guys get through it. It's always a multiple reaching out type thing for us if we have to help somebody try to get through it. And again, we're not Google experts or anything like that. So we do what we can to jump in there and help, but it takes time. Yeah. It's not a tomorrow type of switch, and that's what they expect.
Yeah, we don't have a perfect solve either.
Yeah. So, and then going back to your initial point there too, or your point about the phone number, I've made the mistake. I have, Google Voice on my phone that links back to my business number, so I can just always use my cell phone for business calls or whatever. And I have made the mistake with a few customers where I just wasn't thinking and I clicked on the wrong phone link and called them. And as soon as they have my phone number, it's like they forgot the support number, they forgot everything else. And that's the number that they reach out to every single time there's an issue. So it's once you go down that road, you can't come back. It's
most of these sort of things we're saying to avoid, we've made the same mistake. So when we started Local Locker, like things were coming to our personal phone, maybe, and we got that maybe shut off 6 months in, something like that. Every once in a while, a blue moon still, you're still getting a text from one of our, I guess, our OG customers, and it's fine. The frequency has come way down because again now it's been 7 years, but we'll definitely get a couple more of those in our before it's all said and done.
Yeah.
So typically then, whenever you guys are going and working with a new facility, do you guys have a contract, or what type of length of, how long does it take to get everything kind of rolling with your management company running everything for the business? Is there like a yearly contract that you have with the business, or how does the contract side of it work?
Yeah. Well, the contract itself, what are we on? 45 days now for the most part.
To onboard?
No, not onboard. He's talking about the term of our.
Oh, we do month to month, 30-day notice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, we try to, that's a selling point for us. Like, look, other operators may lock you into a long-term deal. We don't want to be with somebody who's not happy with our service. Like, we want to prove it every month. But no, our onboarding time takes roughly 6 weeks. There are exceptions. Like development deals, things that may have a longer lead time naturally, maybe skew that longer, but we could accelerate a fast transition down to a month, but given how many we've got going on, we say about 6 weeks from a signed contract to us taking over a facility. That's if they're already the owner of the facility.
Right.
If it's a diligence period, we'll get in there and just be right. If we can get in sooner, we'd love to do the things we talked about, right? To try to map these things out, because 6 weeks is a tight period to get these things set up.
Sure.
But that's on average. Our goal is, and what we guide to, is 6 weeks.
Yeah. 6 weeks, and then month to month as far as the term of the agreement between you and the facility is for management.
Yeah.
And I love that. I see so many long-term contracts, and I feel like it's the worst way to do business. I honestly can't believe that it's so prevalent, even across every industry, right? Is like, if a good salesperson can get you to sign a contract, you are locked into poor service, whether for the business side, for the business, or for the consumer. Like, as far as our customers, we're always on there's no contract with our software either. I don't want to work with somebody that doesn't want to work with me. I don't understand locking people into these year over year or 3-year contracts or things. And we still see that all of the time, where somebody's stuck on a contract and there's this huge payoff to try to get out of it. And so, I was just, I love that about your business.
I think it's the right thing to do. I think it also makes business sense. To your point, if someone doesn't want to work with you, like, why are we going to have this sort of shotgun marriage for a year or two until the contract ends? Maybe if it's like the cable person, the cable company, it doesn't matter. But we're working with our clients sort of day in and day out. So if they're not happy with us, that's also not good for our employees and so on. So we're big proponents of that.
Yeah. And
I think the longer you're in a bad marriage too, you're going to end up with a worse word of mouth cycle as well. So the sooner you can end something that's not fit, I think the better.
For sure. Yeah. What I guess going towards the management side, as somebody's a newer operator or somebody that's looking to purchase a facility, what are some of the main things you guys think are the most important things to evaluate with a management company to make sure your bases are covered, or that they're the right fit for your business?
Yeah. So this is, we spend a lot of time sort of talking with prospective owners who are shopping managers about this. Like, I think to owners' detriment, they view the management company line item as one to that sort of, let's find the lowest cost provider, or not all, but too many do. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that the highest cost provider is who you should sign up with, but the lowest cost one is not either, because it is something that, like, for good or bad, the manager you choose, you're going to have different performances. 10 different managers, 10 different sort of bottom line performance to your facilities. So you just need to think through things other than, okay, what are they charging? So it's, for what they're charging, what are you getting? And are they creating enough value to justify whatever that line item is? So we always encourage people to really dig in and look at the tech stack they're operating on. Are they investing there or not? Really dig in and look at what the pass-throughs are. We do our best to just have kind of a simple rate with not a lot of then like pass throughs or other profit centers. So like you'll often see like a call center fee or a website fee or markups on other vendors. We don't do that type of thing. So just again, you got to make sure you're doing an apples to apples comparison. And then the last piece too, it's like often who you're speaking to isn't who's going to be running your facility, right? So you could fall in love with the sales guy, or maybe the owner is pitching you, but the owner is not going to be the one running your facility. So really dig in and ask, all right, who's going to be managing my facility? What sort of quality person are they? What is their experience? Why should I trust them? We really believe in hiring like a higher quality employee, I think, than average. But to do so, that means we need to pay a little bit more than average. And then to do so, our fees need to be, we can't be the lowest cost provider. We believe, and the proven this like will pay dividends, but you gotta, we have to prove that. But any owner should look at it and really understand, what am I getting?
Yeah, sure. And you don't want to be negotiating sort of the the best practices while you're trying to hire one as well. So like we'll often get brought in to help underwrite a deal, and we'll say, here's how we think you should market it. Like, here's your marketing line. And oftentimes it'll end up, I don't really want to spend money on marketing. It's like, all right, well, we think you should. And we have 130 facilities, and we're looking at more than that every day. Like, marketing is marketing is an investment. There's an ROI on it. It's not just an expense. Like, you're paying for new revenue in your facility. So I just think you need to, like, whoever you pick, you should at least align on what their strategy is. And if you can't, then it's probably not going to ever be a good fit, because you're just going to realize that later as well.
Right. And is that something that you guys, as far as whenever you're drawing up the agreement or whatever you're going to have in place, or you're making your recommendations, that all happens prior to them deciding to work with you stage? Do you give them like budgets or recommended budgets prior to even becoming your client?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, not every time. Sometimes we're just brought in a pinch, and we're just to come in and start managing a facility like this. For most owners, we're putting a budget together, but in many cases, like, it could be, the use case that you have returned to multiple times of the guy with the cell phone running his facility is not really worried about that. He just wants somebody to come in and do a better job and be institutional and answer the phones with a customer service team, and actually stay on top of rates and organize labor to get to the site. Maybe he'll carve out a piece of the job himself. Usually it's something facility, maintenance related, like owning the physical piece of the service. But it's not always the case that we're putting budgets together.
Yeah. What I guess one kind of last question I had, and then if there's anything that we didn't cover that you guys would like to talk about, is how much of a difference do you see between markets when you guys are working? You guys work across the United States, right? You're in multiple states, regions. As you're putting your plans together to work in these different areas, like, how much of a variance do you see in terms of things like marketing, and how much marketing spend needs to be in rural areas versus metro areas and things like that?
Yeah. So it is really hard to make any sort of sweeping generality, whether about urban versus suburban versus rural, versus southeast versus northeast. Like, every sort of town, every corner is so different, and we just see that over and over again. So that is more of a, at least in my perspective, more of a word of caution. Like, people are like, oh, the southeast is booming, I want to invest in the southeast or buy a facility in the southeast. Like, not every town in the southeast is booming. Right. So are you buying in a facility that actually is showing population growth and so on? And if it is showing population growth, what are there, self-storage facilities under development that you aren't aware of, right? That are gonna, that industry might grow faster than the population. One thing we do see though on occupancy though, it's like people have sort of soured on kind of the Northeast and the California as a place to invest. Because of some like zoning restrictions and otherwise, those facilities always have higher occupancy because there's just less supply.
Right.
So when owners are buying facilities, one of the things we say is like, really find out the occupancy of the surrounding facilities. Like, if you're buying in a market where every facility is at 50% occupancy, I would, maybe take a step back and at least pause and think about it. If you're buying a facility where your facility is at 50% occupancy and every other one's in the 90s, like that's an awesome opportunity because there's just great market dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you didn't ask this question, but like if I were comparing if I were buying on a 5 cap or something and I was comparing a facility that was 95% occupied versus one that's 50% occupied, even though you could convince yourself that you're going to get up to a higher ROI on the lower occupancy facility because you just got to fill up some units, it's probably the case that the facility that's 90% occupied is going to be easier to push rates on existing tenants to squeeze out additional revenue than it is going to be to fill up the 50% occupied facility. Unless, of course, it's, that facility is in lease up, or even if it's just been sort of stagnant there, really got to pull out some tricks to get the thing full.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this with a potential client yesterday, who was looking at a few facilities and brought us in to help with underwriting. Like, we like facilities that have high occupancy. Like, it is, the revenue optimization games you can play are, way more powerful when you're full.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's a lot more fun there when you're trying to tweak things and increase revenue with a tenant base versus trying to find tenants. I feel like it's a lot more stressful of a situation for sure for a new owner.
Because if there's not tenants, that means more often than not the phone wasn't ringing, right? So was the phone not ringing because something the manager was doing? Like, sometimes it's the case, like they don't have a website and you can't find them online. But if they do, and the phone's not ringing, what are you going to do to make the phone? You can't change that. You do have control over, running a good ECRI program or rolling out tenant protection if it didn't already exist, or you name it.
So let me ask you this question then. You go in to manage a facility, and this is just for whatever. I didn't send any of these over. This is all just extra stuff that I was, as you guys have been talking. You go in to manage a facility that's at 95% occupancy, right? Is the game that you play, or the way that you manage that facility, you're trying to push the occupancy back down to 85% by doing incremental rate increases? Do you go in and increase rates on half of the facility? Like, what kind of levers do you guys like to pull? What's kind of your go-to strategy for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't get too many 95% occupancy facilities coming our way. If you're in the management business, there's a little bit of adverse selection. So it's the facility was struggling, or maybe the owner had it up at 90 and he got just burnt out and stopped answering his phone, so it dipped back down. But when we get facilities, they say at 70, 80, we get it up into the 90s. Yeah, that's when you want to aggressively push tenant rates to get it back down. If you're running an ECRI program and like nobody moves out, that's a data point that you didn't push high enough. So the sweet spot typically is in the low 90s. We know a lot of institutional buyers who they're actually looking for facilities that are 100% occupancy and will pay a little premium because that's a sign of mismanagement, not of excellent management.
Right. And usually there's a lot of value add that can be done at that facility as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The goal is not to kick them out, by the way. If you can move rates and they'll stay, you keep them. But it is a pretty good indicator that you're doing the right thing if some move out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and some of the people that I talk to, I mean, again, we work with facilities that are all over the map in terms of occupancy. And so we do deal with a decent amount of mom and pops that are at 100%, and they just don't want to ruffle feathers, and they don't want a rate increase because they don't want any calls. They just they're making enough money off the facility that they're happy. When those people, God bless
them, right? Because they probably bought the facility 20, 30 years ago. Maybe they developed it then. There's probably no debt on it, and they're making money hand over fist. And to deal with the headache for a few extra bucks, I don't blame them. But the new buyers they're buying at the high prices with debt and interest and maybe the property taxes just got increased on the transaction, so they don't have that luxury.
Sometimes these things are like lender motivated as well. If you're trying to get some sort of supplemental financing for an expansion, lenders will care about occupancy. And even if you can show them like, hey, my occupancy is going to dip here, but revenue is going to go up, like it just may be that the covenant is you need to have occupancy at certain percent So, it's not always just operator error. Sometimes these things are structured.
For sure. Yeah. And some of these people, I always let them know, like, hey, whenever you go to sell your facility, make sure you let us know before you list it, because we definitely see.
That's what the podcast is really for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, guys, was there anything else that you wanted to add in there? Maybe something that I didn't think of a question, or something that comes up a lot that you wanted to add before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I guess my concluding thought, and it's sort of back to the beginning of what owners should think about or prospective owners when they're buying a facility. If you're buying a facility and sort of the cash flow streams do not allow for you to either hire a third-party management or an employee, it's probably an indication that you're overpaying, or that just the business model does not work. Most businesses are great if there's no labor costs, right? And that's not to say you can't manage it yourself, but there should be room for you to hire a manager, and then you managing yourself is just gravy on top. If it only works with you managing it, I would find something else. Because also on the exit, someone else is going to say, like, oh, this facility needs a manager, and you're going to get dinged on your exit price anyway. They're not going to just look at what your sort of NOI was with you managing it. They're like, this is what it would actually cost to manage it. So you're not even creating that much value, at least on an exit price.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a great point there. Yeah, I forgot to bring that up, but yeah, a great thing to evaluate. Let me ask you this one question off of that. Do you guys come in a lot of times where somebody did have a manager at the facility, or is it mostly like unmanaged facilities that you guys come in on?
No, we there's probably there's like 3 buckets. There's the unmanaged. There's 2 buckets of how we take something on. Either we're coming in and it's consistent. Guy already owns the facility, and we are either a new manager or first time management. And then there's happening at the point in time of closing. So you could many of our newer deals, now that we kind of have a bit of a brand and we're getting out there, are facilities where the owner has some on-site staff and they are managing it for him under his brand, and they're W-2 workers for him. And we are coming in now as a new third-party manager, may keep some of the staff there. That's one bucket. The other is what you described. This thing was either owner managed or didn't have a manager, and we're coming in. But in many cases, these things change hands. Like someone gets fired and we're brought in. That's these contracts. We're not unique with these 45-day contracts. Oftentimes, even if you have an annual contract, there's a buyout and you're not happy with your client. So these facilities trade hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one piece, we definitely see more owner managed facilities, and the reason there is like people are calling us for outside of something like transaction related. They're calling us because the facility is not performing, or because it's just become too annoying. Mm-hmm. When there is a manager there, they're already serving as a buffer for the owner, right?
Right.
So we just get less of those calls because they don't have to deal with the headaches and their Saturdays getting ruined. They have the manager.
Yeah.
So we definitely see more owner managed stuff, but that's just because of what primes people to give us a call.
Yeah. Awesome. No, yeah. Great information. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. We enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely. So yeah, if somebody was has some questions for you guys, what's the best way to reach out to either one of you?
Yeah. So you can just head to our website, whitelabelstorage.com. Just Google white label storage will pop right up. And then in there's you can leave your name, email, and then our phone, and either one of us or one of our sales guys will be out reaching out quickly to learn more about you and your facility and see if we can be helpful.
There's some content in there too. I mean, I think we have some rate analysis sheets for first-time owners and some case studies. So you should go check that out.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I enjoyed the conversation, guys. It was awesome to have you on the podcast with me today, and look forward to staying connected and yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening and tuning into the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If this episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a property management software that can be utilized by your business at no cost to you. Pass the fees for credit card processing onto your tenants, increase your business's revenue, no software fees, no contracts, no per unit costs, no surprises. So hope you check out CC Storage as the sponsor of our podcast, and we hope you tune in to the next episode. Thank you.